there, I'm Emily. Welcome to my fourth Flosstube video. Today we're going to be talking about the cross-stitching I've gotten done in the past month. Before we begin, I'll just note that it's quite hot here, as you may be able to tell from the hair and the outfit. So my ceiling fan is on. I did this in my last video. I think everything was okay, but just as a heads up, if you hear any whirring, it's not your computer, it's my ceiling fan, unless it is your computer. Anyway, like I said, we're going to talk about my cross-stitching projects. Now, I had a plan. I had 4 projects. I was going to work on each for a week and all this stuff, which has been my plan for a while. I have kind of like a 4-week rotation going on that's working pretty well. And then something happened. One of my really good friends is getting married, and I had thought, hey, you know, I'm going to go look up and see if there's any like wedding cross-stitch pieces that she might like. So I was kind of seeing a couple. I was like, oh, that one kind of reminds me of how her wedding invitation was. You know, maybe I'll like ask her if she would like that. And then I saw this other piece. And I knew as soon as I saw it that I didn't need to ask her. It's going to be a total surprise because I know she's going to love it. I haven't actually met her fiance, but I know he's going to love it too because it's this, if they're interested in the same things, and she's going to love it. So it's all good. And so their wedding isn't until October. And it's kind of the beginning of August, and I totally stitched the whole thing and I'm done. So all of my other stitching kind of temporarily went out the window while I was working on that. So things did not go according to plan. But I guess what we're going to do is I'm going to be a terrible tease, and we're going to start with the things that you've seen in the past that I've made some progress on, because I've made some progress on all of them before I did this other piece. I actually finished the other piece like last night. I wove in the last of the ends. So let's get started with some of my older pieces that I've worked on. If you remember from last time, I had talked about how I was doing the it's a piece charted by Heaven and Earth Designs, artwork by Amy Stewart. It's called Cliffhanger. I cannot for the life of me find the printout with what the piece actually looks like. Basically, it's this wall of books that are like a cliff down into a crashing ocean, and there's a girl sitting on top reading. It's called Cliffhanger. Haha, it's cute. Anyway, I had made a comment last time that this one, just because of where it was in the rotation, the video before last, I was like, I've only worked on this one day, but I'm gonna keep working on it. And then I didn't keep working on it. And so last time I was like, I've only worked on this one day, but I'm gonna keep working on it. And this time I actually did. So I actually have a little bit more progress. Its spot, it would have been worked on more, but its spot was taken over by the wedding piece. So I had been doing cross country. I've switched to doing parking. It's just so much better for me. So I filled in, like, I think these 2 squares and this spot. It's really not a lot. This is just the upper corner. It's a huge piece. This is just the upper corner of like the book, not spines, but the tops of the books kind of fading off into the darkness. So there'll be, you know, book, 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 and then spine. And anyway, like I said, I cannot find the printout. I'm sure I put it someplace safe so that way I would have it available for when I wanted to do these videos, but I have no idea where it was. And unfortunately, I've rearranged where all of my cross-stitch stuff is, so it's way more convenient now, but the fact that I can't find it makes me worry that it may have gotten shoved like deep under something in that process. So I'll have to go look again some more later. Maybe when I put these back, I'll flip through a couple of baskets and binders and see if it's in there. So anyway, that is where I am on that. I am definitely looking forward to getting back to this. In the past, for my Heaven and Earth designs, I have an Excel spreadsheet that tells me like what percentage done I am, what percentage of the colors I've used, and all this stuff. And it'll tell me like when I'm expected to finish based on my past progress. I did not update these this time in it because I just haven't done very much on them, so I don't have those numbers, but it's probably going to be ugly. I'm probably going to be well over 100 when I finish this if that keeps going, because it didn't get worked on because of the wedding piece, so we're just going to kind of ignore that, and I'll make up for it later. That was in a sealed plastic bag. The next piece that I worked on was my Plum Street Sampler 12 Days of Christmas. And once again, I don't remember exactly where I was. I know I was partway in 5th day. I think I may have just had 5th day and then the crown done. And so I've added the trees and the rings, and I'm doing these like snowflake things. Oh, you know, I totally didn't talk about fabric. If you're curious and you don't remember this cliffhanger piece from before, this is being done 2/1 tent stitch on a 28 count Lugana. The color is bone, I believe. And I'm doing this all with, you know, the standard DMC flosses. This guy is also a 28 count. It's a random linen. It's literally in my notes as rando linen. I found it at a thrift store. I don't know what it is. It's just a linen with not very much border, but I can barely fit this piece on here, so I'm going to do it, and I'll deal with finishing it later. That's a problem for future Emily. It won't be a big problem anyway. Yeah, so 28 count. I'm doing it 1/1 crosses. Random colors. I don't even know if they're all DMC, to be honest. I know the green is because it's actually in its original skein. The other two are on bobbins, and I have no idea what they are, but they're kind of in my, like, random stash I got from a grandmother who doesn't cross stitch anymore. I have random stash from either a grandmother or a great-grandmother who doesn't cross stitch anymore, and I have random stash from my mom who doesn't cross stitch anymore. So it was kind of one of those, I don't know what it is, but it works. I've mentioned it before, it's not perhaps the best color combination. It was kind of put together on a whim, so not always the easiest to see, although I think it's doing pretty well today. So yeah, I got a decent progress done on that. I was going to work on that some more this week before I filmed it, but again, wedding piece, so that didn't get done, but I'm looking forward to getting back to it. I was hoping to get that done this year, so, but we're in month, like I started it on day 2 and we're in month 8 and I'm on day 5, so it's not looking too good on the whole getting it done this year thing. I'm still gonna try. If I stitch on nothing but it all December and hate it, that'll be why. And then the one other piece that I worked on, I had like only worked on this like I think maybe a day, maybe 2 before the wedding piece supplies arrived, and I worked on it instead. So this one isn't my other Heaven and Earth design that I'm doing. This one is For Heavenly Beasts by Kayumi Hirai. And I'm in this area right now. Oh, I left my pattern sheet on here again, didn't I? I just shoved it in the bag after I got done. And so I believe that I was starting this column of 20 stitches, and that's where I got to before I got sidetracked by wedding piece. So I've done page 1, page 2, I want to say this is like page 9 or something. I'm kind of going diagonally downward. And I'm doing this one parking in 20 stitch rows. I actually have a video on how I do this one. It's a 18 count Ada. I believe it's in antique white, because it's not white, but it's not very dark. I think it's antique white. I just wanted a little bit bigger than the pieces on the 28 count. I did the math, and it's a relatively small piece. It's much smaller than the other one. I think that the cliffhanger is going to be bigger than this, and it's on 28 count, and this is on 18 count. So there's a little size difference. All the standard DMC threads and the Krynic for the metallic bits. The metallic you're seeing right now is my gridding thread, but I think you can see a little bit in like the lightest white areas. There's the Krynic that kind of sparkles. And my nose itches something fierce. I don't know why. Anyway, I don't know what the numbers on this one are either. I kind of didn't want to look. It's probably going to be ugly because I did, you know, 200 stitches and then stopped because of the piece that you are about to see. Let me put this thing back in its little envelope. And by little envelope, I mean I made a pocket-sized thing that's big enough that when the trays, my stand clamps on here to my frames, and so this piece can slide up over it, so that way I can leave it kind of angled like this on my frames and it doesn't get dust on it. I've only got one of those done. I need to do this for my other Q-snaps. I just haven't gotten around to it because I don't like sewing. I would rather be cross-stitching than sewing. Can you blame me? So, this is the one. I'll show you the date of their wedding, but I'm not going to show you their names. I'm 100% certain my friend doesn't watch this. Well, okay, I'm 99.99999% certain my friend doesn't watch this. If you do watch this, you learned a secret. Pretend like you're surprised. So, my friend's a gamer. I played Dungeons & Dragons with her. Loved it. And this is, I'm trying to think. The name wasn't on the PDF. I think it's called Gamer Wedding Piece, or Gamer Wedding. It's by Sprightly Stitches. And so you've got their name and the date of their wedding. And I'll just kind of show you a little corner here. The name is in kind of this style of writing, like so. And then the date, and then, whoop. And then these are the dice that you use when you play Dungeons & Dragons. And then this is the little verse. And it says, I take thee to be my permanent party member through critical hits and critical failures, be us looting or being looted, through mummy rot and restoration, to love and defend from this day forward until we run out of resurrection spells. It's the perfect D&D gamer wedding piece. Because it's wedding vows, just D&D character style. And I am doing this over 2 on a white, I believe it's a 36 count Joblin. I believe it's 36 count, it might be 32 count, but I'm like 99% sure it's 36 count, and I didn't go back and look at my tag. But it's a white Joblin. This is the first time I've worked on a Joblin, and I kind of see what people mean when they say it's like kind of a thick, squishy fabric. I like it fine. I haven't met an even weave I haven't liked. I need to get some different linens and try those out and see how I feel about them too. But yeah, so far, so good. I think it came out really nicely. Unfortunately, I am very hesitant to recommend the pattern. I know that there's going to be people who think this is the coolest thing ever, but there's some serious issues with the pattern. It was $7, which is not bad, but given the number of issues with it, I'm a little bit mad that I paid a full $7 for it, personally. So, just to kind of give you a quick rundown, so if this is something you're interested in, you can decide if you want to deal with the frustration. So first of all, a big part of this is the fact that you're going to customize it with the name and date of the people getting married. And she gives you an alphabet for each, which is great. But the problem is, she gives you 0 guidance. I'm saying she, I assume the designer's a she, I'm not actually sure. It's Sprightly Stitches on Etsy, and I don't actually know who's behind it, but I'm just going to keep saying she because that's probably true. So she gives you the alphabet for both, but she gives you 0 guidance whatsoever on putting it together. I was hoping that she would at least mention like how many spaces apart she liked to put the first and last name, so that way I would kind of have a guideline like how far apart to space them. I didn't have to like look at her sample picture and guesstimate. But there was nothing of that. I'm confident in my ability to chart and center and get everything lined up, but if you're not, be aware that there is 0 information whatsoever. You literally get a PDF that's this pattern and a PDF that's the alphabet. And I think one other thing, but it's nothing that's actually going to help you. So if you're not down for charting and centering just based on it, it's not hard. It's not hard at all. But I was hoping, especially for $7, for a PDF that she's going to sell repeatedly, that she could include a quick, you know, hey, I put the letters this far apart and the words this far apart, at the minimum. And it would be nice, personally, if I were doing it, I would probably include a quick note for people who've never done it before saying, you know, hey, this is how you do it, this is how you find the center, line it up, all that. Like I said, it's not hard. I was just a little disappointed. And if that was the only problem, I would be totally okay with that. I wouldn't even mention it. But there's a lot more. I'm going to check my notes. This chart for the dates is printed wrong. So instead of being printed where each point is at a hole in the fabric, it's shifted half a stitch down. And I don't know, because she doesn't include any written instructions to tell me. I don't know if that means that she wants you to stitch it shifted half a stitch down, or it just printed wrong. And if she wants you to stitch it half a stitch down, she recommends you do it on 18 count Aida, which stitching half a stitch down on Aida is going to be ugly because you're going to have to split every single square. Now I'm doing this on an even weave. It wouldn't be a big deal for me, but quite frankly, I just shifted the whole chart back onto the guidelines. It looks fine. So that was really obnoxious to be having to copy things over and also mentally shift them so that way they weren't off. It was wrong. The capital letters for the names often have these little swirlies underneath. In fact, I'm going to show you here. My friend's name starts with a K-A. So it's got this swirly bit under it. I couldn't use that swirly bit the way it was charted, because that swirly bit, the way it's charted, comes right up into the A. And not in a swirls down and then like into the middle of the A so it's all fancy. No, it just comes up and it swirls so that it matches exactly with the line of the A and it looks like crap. So I went and I looked at her sample piece, and on her sample piece the person's name started with an A and it also had that swirl, and you could visibly tell that she had just extended the swirl downward. But she didn't extend the swirl downward on her chart for the letters. So you're going to have to be prepared, depending on what letters start the name, you may need to just kind of shift the swirly bits around. Again, not a huge deal, but something that I would expect to be fixed on a $7 pattern that you're going to sell over and over and over again, so your initial investment gets spread out over a lot of sales. The dice chart, the chart for these dice, was off. This 6-sided die, the easiest one, the cube, it was all funky. And then one of the other ones was a little bit funky too. I had to adjust them so that it didn't look like a misshaped die. On its own, not a big deal. In combination with everything else, I was starting to get pretty frustrated with this pattern. One thing to note when you are putting the name on it, it was really clever because she included a darker section where it was like first person's name here, and she charted for you second person's name, and then a space for the date, so you could see exactly where you're supposed to put it. I liked that a lot. Unfortunately, she made them really long so you could put a long name on it, and she numbered them from 1 to however many stitches she allowed. So I would have liked to see a 0 at the center point so that you could go out from it however far your name was, because the numbers didn't really help me because I had like a 37 stitch wide name and I had to put it between numbers 152, and like it wasn't really helpful for centering. Minor, totally minor, just a heads up, that's a thing. The more frustrating thing was that those sections have a super thick black line outlining them. It's great because it lets you see where it is, but it means that any of your letters that have got lines along the top or the bottom, you're gonna have a really hard time writing those in. Again, on its own, not a huge deal. In combination with everything else, pretty frustrating. The other one, and the one that you really need to know before you buy this chart, is that the stitch count she gives in her shop is wrong. The stitch count she gives in her shop is not the stitch count for the pattern itself. It is the stitch count for the longest name possible plus border. So if you're looking at it going, I don't want to do this on an 18 count Aida in an 8x10 frame the way she suggests. I want to do this on something else, like a 36 count even weave. I wanted to calculate how big of a piece of fabric I'm going to need before I buy this, so that way I can know how expensive it's going to be to do. If you do that, you're going to be using inaccurate numbers and you're going to get a piece that's bigger than you probably need. Because I was sitting there going, okay, well, I'm going to want at least a 10 stitch border on the outside, not knowing that a 10 stitch border on the outside was already included in the chart. So my piece actually came out like square because my people's names were not very long. It's not a big deal, but you should just be aware that if you're going to be calculating anything based on the stitch count, buy the chart and work out what your people's names are and find the actual stitch count, because my people's names were shorter, both of them, than the width of the piece. Like, it would have been really helpful if she had included, like, this is the maximum size stitch count with a border, and then this is the stitch count of the actual pattern itself if your names are not longer. So height could be the height from the top of the name to the bottom of the text, and width from text to text, or your name, whichever is longer. like, I was getting ready to buy the wrong size piece of fabric because I was thinking that she didn't have a border included and that that width was going to be the width of the wording or close to, not the width of like a really long name. Because my names were like, I don't know, a third of her maximum width, and they're not like super short names. So all in all, I was a little frustrated by the pattern. I really like it. I love the way it came out. It's going to be perfect for my friends. I'm trying to hide names. It's not that huge of a deal, I don't think, but anyway. But I was frustrated by the pattern. Fortunately, I have it now, so if I need to do it again, I know what the issues are. I've made a note for myself how to fix those dice. I know what the stitch count is. I know what I can do with it. To stitch, it was fine. Didn't take too long. The main names are a little bit obnoxious because you're switching back and forth between cross stitching with 2 strands and back stitching with 1 strand. Oh, I went on this whole thing about the pattern, but I've never actually told you what colors I used. This is done in Anchor fabric, in Anchor floss. I like Anchor black more than DMC black because it's thicker, so I definitely wanted to use that. And then this one, I was trying to match the purple color that was on their wedding invitation, and the best match I could find was Anchor 101. The DOCs didn't really seem to have any purples in the right family, and I remembered hearing that Anchor sometimes had better purples, so I went and looked, and they did, and since I was buying from a place that carried Anchor to get the fabric, I figured I would just throw in 1 skein and it wouldn't be a big deal. So anyway, love this piece, love the idea of the pattern, not a huge fan of the execution of the pattern. If you like this piece, definitely do it, just have a heads up so that you're not as frustrated and surprised as I am that things are a little bit not the way they should be when it comes to the pattern. Rebecca, this is the one I was saying if you want me to stitch for you so that way you don't have to deal with the frustration, let me know. Because I suspect you're going to want it. So, anyway, frustration aside, I really love that piece. I was super excited about it. I now have between August and the end of October to frame it and ship it to her. I'm going to be framing it myself. It's not going to be a big deal. It's going to fit in a, since mine's pretty square, it's going to fit in a 10 by 10 frame. So, yeah. And actually now that I think about it, it must have been a 32 count that I know I said I was pretty sure it was a 36 count. I'm pretty sure it's a 32 count because I was, the 18 count is equivalent to a 36 count and it fits in an 8 by 10 frame and mine's going to be 10 by 10. It's not a huge deal. Do the math for yourself because the length of your people's names is going to affect the width of the pattern, so you may need a rectangular, you may be able to do a square. Anyway, I'm going to go buy a 10 by 10 frame and frame it and it'll be cool. And so at some point in the next couple of months I may pop back on and be like, here it is in its frame. But yeah, that was what I'd stitched. So now that that wedding piece is out of the way, I'm hoping that in August I'm going to get a lot more work done on my regular pieces, especially the ones that got neglected in this last month for the wedding piece. My flower of the month didn't get worked on at all. My 4 heavenly pieces didn't get worked on very much. And I had been hoping to get back to Cliffhanger and, well, no, actually not to get back to Cliffhanger, to get back to 12 Days of Christmas at the end of the month. But again, that didn't happen due to wedding piece, which I finished yesterday. So now we're back onto the regular schedule. So my plans, I had set some specific goals for my cross stitching this month, and obviously those didn't happen due to wedding piece. However, it was pretty good motivation prior to the wedding piece coming up to work more regularly on my project. One of my issues with the cross stitching is finding the time to set up the stand and stuff. So sometimes I'm less likely to work on it than the knitting. So having those goals kind of helped me be like, okay, I really should work on it today so I can make that goal. So I'm going to kind of carry on with that. In my last video with my knitting, I was talking about what my knitting goals were for August. And so in the hopes that having that put out there would help me stick with it. So briefly, I was just going to tell you what my cross-stitching goals are for until the next video, which is going to be about a month. So with my... Okay, I was going to show you the piece, but now I don't know where it got to. There it is. With my 12 Days of Christmas, which is here, I would like to finish day 5, so that's just a little bit more of this black stuff and then this outline, and I would like to finish day 6. I don't know if that's going to be terribly realistic, but I would like to get both of those done because I'm trying to catch back up. I'm trying to get this done by this year, the end of this year. It was a stitch along from like 2015, so I would really like to get it done sometime in the not too distant future. On my cliffhanger, I would like to finish this page. It's not a lot of progress, but the Heaven and Earth designs always take me a while, so I was going to just go with a small goal, and if I move on to the next page, that's even better. The Four Heavenly Beasts is the one that is the slowest for me because the parking in rows is slow. I find it super relaxing, but slow. So for that one, I'm hoping to get like half of this row done. And I'm trying to kind of set, for the most part, I'm trying to set like small goals that I can easily go over rather than big goals that I'm not going to meet, because if I have a big goal and I realize I'm not going to meet it, I often just stop working towards it at all. The exception to this is going to be that 12 days, because I don't know if I can actually get all of day 5 and 6. Those borders take forever to do. It's just a single, it's just a 1 stitch wide stitched border, but it takes forever. So we'll see how that goes. I didn't grab my flower of the month that I'm working on. It's November Chrysanthemum. I would love to finish that month. That's also another one that I'm not quite sure if that is realistic. At a minimum, I'd like to get, you know, half of what I have done left, but if I can finish it, that would be great. So that's kind of my line of thinking for my plans. Thanks for watching. I hope you're having a great day and a great stitching time and you're making lots of progress, and I will see you next month. Bye!